Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Labyrinth, a podcast produced by Virtual Executive Director. My name is Becky Brett, and I'm your host. I'm an intuitive coach for artists, content creators, and entrepreneurs, and I can hardly wait to bring you this week's episode. But first, this podcast is brought to you by Virtual Executive Director. Have you ever thought of working with a coach? You can make a lot of progress in a short amount of time. Now, if you're interested, I work with clients one-on-one using the mantra of the labyrinth, which is release, receive, return, to guide our sessions. When you work with me, you will build relationships that support you and your work, receive more money for your efforts, and find more time for the people and the things you love. My whole purpose is to help you get to the life of your dreams. So far, my most successful clients have come to me when they're building or birthing something new, or they're facing a major life change. They seek me out to help them shed old habits, beliefs, and thought patterns in order to fully launch themselves into their new life or project. If this sounds like you, fill out the application linked here in the show notes. And if I think we'll be a good fit, I'll contact you to schedule a quick call. And look, don't worry, it's not a high-pressure sales situation because I'm the one interviewing you. This week on the podcast, it's story time. So if you follow me on social media, you know that a couple of months ago, I had a miraculous day with a wild blue jay. I mean, who does this happen to? I was a total Disney princess kind of afternoon. So amazing. And I learned, upon reflection, I learned so much from that experience. And so I want to tell you the story of how it unfolded and then share with you some of the things that I learned from that day and give you some, I don't know, we'll all take whatever we want to take from it. And maybe there'll be a big grand lesson to wrap it all up, but let's just see where this goes. Okay. So it was a Saturday afternoon in mid-June, and there was this fledgling blue jay hopping around my backyard. Now, we have some stray cats in the neighborhood, and I was worried that this little bird would not make it through the night if it couldn't, get back to its nest. And so I was able to snag it, and once it calmed down a little bit in my hands, I took it up to my back porch and put it in, I have some plastic bins, and I grabbed some grass clippings, put them in the bottom of a bin, set the bird down in there, and put a little container of water in there, and pondered my life choices while I figured out what to do with this thing. Because I'm a busy person. Look, everyone listening to this is a busy person. And I'm like, okay, I cannot sit here and babysit this bird all night or all into the, whatever. So the bird, took a little bit of water in. I dripped some water down into its little mouth, and it seemed to be doing okay. And I was like, okay, let's venture out into the yard for a minute. So I grabbed one of my lawn chairs, carried it to the middle of my labyrinth. Yes, if you don't know, I built a labyrinth in my backyard, and sat down in the middle of my labyrinth with the bird. And I stretched my arm out to see if it wanted to just hop down. I had put the dogs away in the house and wanted to give the bird sort of space to roam around my yard. I wanted to see where mom and dad bird, blue jay, were, and to just sort of, let nature kind of do what nature needed to do. So I stretched out my arm, and it did not jump off my arm. It stayed on my arm. In fact, it kind of turned around and looked me in the face and was like, oh, what do you expect me to do? And so I was just kind of staring at it, sitting there on my arm, and then it walked down into my hand and was just hanging out, like looking around. I heard Mama Bird in the tree above me, and the little baby and I both kind of looked up and saw Mama up there. But the mom, and if you know blue jays, like they will attack you. And the mom blue jay did not attack me, so that was kind of cool. And so this little blue jay and I just kind of sat there trying to figure out what to do with each other. After a few minutes, it started preening itself. And if you ever need like 2 minutes and 15 seconds of zen, I do have a post on my Instagram of this little bird preening itself. It is so cute. It is so cute and so peaceful. And so it preened itself. It dozed off for a minute. And then it just sat there in my hand, and I just sat there in the chair, and the two of us sat there in the middle of my labyrinth, receiving a lot of peace and a lot of comfort from each other. At one point, it even jumped up onto my shirt and up onto my shoulder, and I was like, "Ooh, okay, this is different." And I picked it up off my shoulder, and of course, it pooped in my hand. That was delightful. I guess I kind of expected that to happen at some point. So yeah, the bird just made itself at home on me, which was amazing. We have connections with our pets, but it's so rare to have a connection with a wild animal. And it really just shows you how connected we all are if we choose to be. And that day I definitely opened myself up to this connection. And I looked down at that bird and I was like, okay, well, if we're going to be here, let's at least get you some flight time. Get you some flying practice. It was so young that it didn't, so it could fly like just maybe a couple feet at a time, but its tail wasn't developed yet, and its wings weren't, quite strong enough to give it enough lift. So I took it over to my fence and stood about, like 3 feet away from the fence and let it fly from my hand to the fence several times. And there is nothing cuter than a baby bird not sticking the landing. I mean, I felt kind of bad, but it was adorable. And so, it would kind of land on the fence and then kind of fall down to the ground. And so I picked it up, put it in my hand again, and then held it so that it could fly over to the fence. We did this several times, and then I heard Mom and Dad bird again up in the trees above us. So I left the baby on the fence and kept my distance. I stepped about, probably 20, 30 feet away and watched while the mom and dad came down to feed it. Now, if you've heard anything about birds, there's the story that you should not touch a baby bird because then the parent birds won't want anything to do with it. And I've since learned that that's not true, and especially from personal experience here. And so I left the bird to get fed by its parents. And when that seemed to be finished for the time being, I went back over to it and we continued flight practice. And then I took it back up to my porch and it fell asleep. It fell asleep in, I had a little, like a washcloth, and set it down in that. And it just fell asleep for several minutes. I don't know that birds sleep all that long during the day, but it fell asleep and it was so peaceful. And I mean, how I recognize the miracle of the day, right? How often do we get to spend that kind of time connecting with another living creature? Another living creature that is not our same species. Well, the sun started to go down and I needed to make a decision about what to do with this bird. So I put it up on the side of my house, along a piece of conduit that runs along the side of my house where the cats couldn't get to it, but Mom and Dad could still see it. And it should be safe overnight. There was not any bad weather expected to roll in, and so I was confident that it would be okay. The next morning, I got up, checked on the bird. It was still there. I grabbed it and gave it a little bit more flight practice, set it aside on the fence again so that Mom and Dad could feed it. And that's when I heard the sound of another baby blue jay. I'm like, oh my gosh, a sibling. So the way my yard is, my fence is really loose and open. And my neighbors have a fence that is more of a privacy fence. And it was on the other side of that fence that I heard the other baby blue jay. And everything made sense to me about the placement of these birds because the mom and dad were in the trees above that looked down on both of our yards. And so I put the baby that I was with on the ground and followed it as it hopped around the fence and towards the other yard, the gate to the other yard. And because I'm friendly with my neighbors, I felt comfortable, like following the bird over there. And I saw its little sibling and I saw the parents in the tree above. And I thought, you know what? This is the yard where the baby belongs. So I made sure it got through the fence and into the yard and felt reasonably certain that it would be okay. However, both my neighbor and I have big dogs. And I wasn't sure if her big dog had seen these birds yet. So I talked to my neighbor. She came outside for a minute and we were talking about the babies. I said, hey, I don't know if you realize this, but you've got some fledgling blue jays in your yard. Are you okay? Making sure they're okay, or if this is going to be a hardship, we can move them to my yard. Just let me know. And so we were talking about, she said, well, she had seen them, that her dog had kind of run out the back door and chased the babies under their back porch. And her dog couldn't get them in the back, under the back porch. So she felt reasonably certain that they would be safe under there. And I did too. And so I was like, all right, great, fantastic. Well, here's the other bit of that, is that she has also been feeding the neighborhood stray cats. She said she moved that little side project to her front porch. So hopefully the cats would not, get back in her backyard and with the birds and everything. And so I thought, okay, this should be all right. We should be okay. Little birdie, thank you for the past 24 hours, and I'm sure you'll be safe over here. Oh, and my neighbor invited me to come over and check on the birds whenever I wanted. So that was very sweet. A few days later, I realized I hadn't heard the baby birds. And I thought, that's weird. Okay. So I went over into her yard and went to look under the back porch. And as I approached the back porch, I saw the rear end of a cat scamper down a hole under their house. Right that moment, it was like I knew what had happened, and I was just inconsolable. I felt like that pit in my stomach. I felt like I had let that baby bird down. I was certain that bird had turned into cat food. I had to get out of her yard and back to my own house and just started sobbing because that little bird had trusted me. I mean, that bird had trusted me. That bird's parents trusted me with its little life. And I might as well just fed it to the cat myself. I was so upset. And that's when I realized that too, that little bird's life was never mine. It was never mine to control. It was never my responsibility. I had entered its life for a moment, and it was a magical moment, at least for me. But its destiny was not in my hands. Even as devastated as I was at what I thought had happened, I grew to understand that that bird was still a gift. That bird still had lessons and gifts to share with me if I was willing to look at them. And so I took some time and I really, I sat with it. I sat with it, in it, around it, absorbing it. And I thought, okay, what is the gift and the lesson in here? My time with this bird was an extraordinary gift. It was something that few people get to experience. And by releasing the bird back to its parents, back to nature, I had to release all control over the outcome too. And just because I didn't like the outcome doesn't mean it was unfair, or at least in my mind, unforgivable. I mean, maybe it got one more day of life because of me. I can't be mad at nature. I mean, I don't love the outcome, but I respect it. I respect the hard lesson that I don't get to control everything just because I set it in motion. And I think this is a hard lesson for coaches, teachers, parents, and other guides, that in trying to control the outcome, we miss out on the outrageous abundance that wants to come to us. By limiting ourselves to just one possible result, we cut off the infinite variety of results waiting to appear for us. I mean, results that are better than we could even imagine, that have more rewards and more delight than we could ever, that we would ever dare ask for. And I know I'm going to speak directly right now to my fellow directors, producers, creators of art, because in our work, we do put forth a vision, and we want certain things to happen. We want our audience to feel a certain way, to respond a certain way, to have a certain experience, to create that experience for people. But guess what? We don't get to control that. And please hear this with all the love I have in my heart for you. You do not get to control that. You can set it in motion. You can build the playground, so to speak. But it's up to our audiences and other people to choose how they want to have that experience for themselves. And God, this is a hard lesson for a control freak like me. And maybe for you too. It is such a hard lesson. And it's a hard lesson, especially when, a little life is involved in it. It helps. I will tell you this. It helps release control. If this is your issue, which if you're listening to this right now, whenever you're listening to it, I'm guessing this is an issue for you. It helps to have someone in your corner to support you through this. And releasing control, releasing expectations, it's not easy. But it's the first step in being able to receive the abundance, to receive the greatness, to receive everything that the universe wants to give us. First, we have to let go. So, to continue with the bird, I do have some good news. When I talked to my neighbor, I saw my neighbor, I guess a few days after that. And she said she saw the birds fly away. She saw the whole family left. I've had other friends reach out to me and let me know that if the cats had gotten those babies, well, first of all, probably they didn't, because the parents would have demolished the cats. But there would have been a pile of feathers somewhere. And I thought, okay, you know what? You're right. I think that birdie's okay. And speaking of abundance, I went and got a bird feeder, which, hey, I'm a bird feeder person now. Never thought I would be that person, but I am. And so now there's a bird feeder hanging about, 10 feet away from my back porch where I do a lot of my best thinking. And I had no idea the variety of birds that call my backyard home. I mean, beautiful, like red and blue and black and gray and all different yellow, bright yellow finches, just adorable birds. Even, I think it's called a tufted titmouse. And that bird looks like a mini blue jay. And I've also since seen blue jays fly back into my yard, and I wonder if one of them is the baby that spent so much time with me that day. There's more to this world than we know. All we have to do is release control over the outcome and let all of that beautiful abundance and diversity and life in. So thank you. Thank you, little blue jay, for the extraordinary day and the gift of this lesson of a lifetime. Okay, whew, that was kind of heavy. I know, that was kind of heavy. However, the pictures are super cute. So if you'd like to see the pictures from that day, go to my Instagram, which is Becky Brett Caldwell, or you can find me on LinkedIn. And I think that is Becky Brett. I'll have all the links in the show notes. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. Thank you for receiving it with so much love in your heart, from mine to yours. If you don't already, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Becky Brett Caldwell for daily inspiration, information, and support. I also do daily and weekly Labyrinth Oracle card readings to inspire and guide my community. If you're looking for a coach, the link to my application is in the show notes, and I can't wait to hear from you. Enjoy the journey, everyone. And remember, you can lose yourself in a maze, but you can find yourself in a labyrinth.